In this tutorial using Spring Boot, we will build application that uses JWT. In the previous tutorial, we discussed the basic of JWTs in Java, and in this tutorial, we will build an application that uses JWT for authentication. So let's build these together. This is the security architecture of our application, which we will going to build together, and it is based on the Spring Security provided architecture. Here are the key to understanding the architecture. We have the red line which represent the error response, and we also have the green line which represent the success, which is HTTP 200, and we also have the black lines which represent the request. And we have the request started from here. As we all know, that the request is first intercepted by the authentication filters. We have so many filters here which the request passes through. As you see here, inside these filters we have the JWT. So the request passes through Authentication Manager. Authentication Manager delegate the authentication responsibility to the authentication provider. And as you see the line here, one goes to the Userdetails service. Here we have the password encoder. So this authentication provider will use the password encoder and Userdetails service to validate the request. So as you see here, from the Userdetails service, we have the method load by username, which query with the name provided to the database. We have database here. So this is the black line, and it represent the request. So let's take, we have some arrows here, 1 2 3 4 5. So, and let's follow this step by step. On here is the request. Now let's say let's follow the red line. First, from the filter we may have an arrow which is JWT validation failure from the filters. And when we pass here, assuming we pass to the authentication manager, we may have unidentified authentication object, which means that the authentication manager does not understand the object provided by this authentication provider, so it will not accept, and then the arrow will return the HTTP 403. So we also have this unidentified JWT token. This happens from the filters, authentication filter. And we also have password does not match. So these occur here between these, where the authentication provider uses the password encoder and the Userdetails service. The user not found occurs here in the database when it queried, and it doesn't find the user. So this is how I design this, and if it is success, then assuming we find the user in the database, it will return and store the user details in the security context called the dispatcher servlet. The dispatcher servlet will call the controller. So then from here we have the HTTP 200. So this is the overview of this architecture. This is the architecture of our security implementation that we will going to build together with you. Here in the STS, let's create a new project. Here let's choose Spring Starter project. We have this. And next So it is connecting us to the spring.io. This is the last tutorial on the Spring security tutorial. I will delete this as well as this, and I will leave this group as coding techniques as well as the package name, but this will be JWT Authentication and Authorization. So, and then the name of the project, let me name it JWT tutorial. So I will be using Maven here is okay, and then Java version 17, then the language is Java. So the next thing we will do is to add the dependency. So on first of all, I need a Spring Web, and then I need a Spring Boot Dev tool, as well as the team leaf which we will use for the login and the Spring security. So I doesn't need the MySQL driver or H2 database because I will be using a list to fetch the user from the list, and you will see how we will do this together. And you will ask why we didn't add the dependency for JWT. We will add this later. I have it in my file, but now let's click finish. So our project is now on its way coming. So getting started. So let me drop down these. We have main Java coding techniques. So before it finish, now let me create packages which we will be using in this tutorial. And first I need a package name model. Let me enter this again. So let's create a package. So package I also need the service package, I need a security package as well. Let me just add config, is okay. And I need a JWT Util package, new package to JWT Util. So, and I also need a package filter. Okay, this is what we will be using here. First, let's run this application, and later we will add the classes step by step. And here is what we need so far. Okay, now let's run this application and make sure that we have no issue. So let's run as Spring Boot app. So it is running. Okay, as you see, we have this auto-generated password which provided by the Spring security by default, and we will override this with our own. So, and we will start this journey step by step as I created these packages. Now we will continue to add classes. So let's do this together. Now that our application runs successfully, so before going further, first let's go to the pom.xml. So I will add the dependency now for the JWT. So here it is in my file, the dependency for JWT. I will add the link to the code, so to the link to my repository. Now let me copy this and add it to the dependency. So below this, let's add the dependency here. So and then save the project. Okay, so now we added the dependency. The next thing we will do is we will create a model class step by step, and then going further to this tutorial. So let's check what. Okay, so we doesn't have problem, so it's okay. Now let's go forward. Okay, now going forward, let's go to the model and create new class. But before then, let me add the new package for the controller, which I forgot. Controller. So okay, so now let's go to the model and add the new class, which is the user class. Okay, so here is our new Java class, and we will not add the entity annotation because this is not the entity class. We will just be using this. So now let's add some variable private string username, so and then private string password, so followed by the role private string role. Okay, we have this, and now this class will implement the user details interface. So and we will implement we will have some methods here. Let's add the unimplemented method phase. Let's start with this one, the first one, which is granted authority, which return a list of role. So let's add this list. Let's remove this list off. We will pass a lambda here inside this, then the role that we have here. So we finish with the implementation of this method, and then the next thing we will do is to return the password and the username, and this is all. So for the get password, we will just return the password, and then the same thing here, we will return the username. So that is the detail of the user we needed to for this tutorial, and this will return true, so is account not non-expired. We don't want the account to expire. We will return true. So as well as this true is account not locked, we will return true here as well. So true and then true as well. So what is the next thing we will be doing? The next thing, we will add this config class, which is security config class. We will configure the security and add the custom noun that we have the user. So let's do this. Okay, now let's create a security config class in the config package here. So let's create a class security config, which is security configuration. So in this class we will annotate it with the configuration. First, what we need here, we need a user detail service and the password encoder. Let me add the password encoder. As for the user detail service, we need some implementation before adding. So first, let's add the password encoder. In this case, this password encoder, we will return the no password encoder, which is the implementation for the plain text, as we are storing the password in plain text, and then we will not be using any bytecrypt, any algorithm. So this is just a tutorial, and we are not storing something sensitive. I have the tutorial which I have used this implementation a lot, and you will check this. So now here is our password encoder, and then let me add the user detail service. As for the user detail service, we need the implementation of the user detail service interface. So here is a bin before this. Let me just comment this out, and then let's go to the service class, new service package here, and then create a new class. And the new class will be InMemory, because we are not fetching this from the database. InMemory user detail service. So service, and this, in this class we will have the implementation of the user detail service interface, and we have this method load by user, which we will use to load a user from a data source. In this case, we are loading this user from the list, and then here we have let's have a list of user details, a variable face. Let me set this to private. So private, and then users, I will name these users. So we have a list of user details. As I said earlier, or as I used to say it, the difference between user detail service and this user details. User detail service load the user. It's a contract which we will implement to load the user from a data source, and the user details describe a user, his role, and all about the user. So now let's add the constructor. Add a constructor, source, generate constructor using field. Okay, here we have the constructor. So, and we will be loading this user from this list, because we will pass the list of users to this constructor. So let's go to here and the load by username method, which we will use to load the user. Okay, so we will use users dot stream. We will use stream pipe, and use a method filtered which return predicate. So what we will do here, we will filter between the username that we have here. In this list we will filter the user that match this one. So let's add the lambda variable, so and then use it to access get username. So we are getting the username from the list, and then check if it is equals to this username. So it passes this automatically. And let me break this line so as we see clear. Okay, so we will also need to find face. So this is optional, and we have it is from the optional class, and then we will find the user. If the user is not found, then we will throw exception, or else throw exception. So on the exception here is the username not found exception. Let's pass it here, new username not found. Are they searching for the class new username not found exception, and here we will pass the message user not found. Okay, let me break this line again. So this is all we are doing, and then let's close this. So first we will check the user that matches the username in the parameter, and then find this user, return the user. So and if he doesn't find any user that matches this criteria, we will be throwing an exception. So now that we have created this, and we need to pass this list of users here. So now we need to create a class which is user memory service. Let's name this class like this and add some users that we want. We will have a method to return the list of users, and we will later pass it to the constructor of this class. Now let's create a class user memory, or users memory service. So and then click finish, and here we will add the user. So before we will need add service here, and let me confirm if we have annotated this class, the class that we just created. So we need to annotate this class with add component. You need to add this if you forgot. So now let's go back to our new class where we will add a list of users. So public, and the list will be of type Userdetails. So we will add the user details, and then I will just name it as user or users. So since it will returning users, I will just name it users, and then so here we will add the users user details. Let me name this u1, and then equal to new user. So in checking for this class user, sometimes you may end up having passed this user from the user details, and you may have error. Okay, so you will not be able to access the members of your class. So here we pass the user, and let's go back to this user class. We will create a constructor where we will pass this value. Here in the user class, let's create a constructor. So generate constructor using this field. Okay, so we have this. Now we will go back to the user memory service, and then first let's check what comes first: username, password, and role. So here I will pass the username as Aliyu, followed by the password as 1234, followed by what? So admin. The role, let me add this as admin, and let me duplicate this and name it U2. So let me add this as Yasir, and then let me change this to manager, and we'll change the password to, let me just leave it as 123. So now let me return this list, which is list of, we will access the of method and then pass u1 comma u2. So if you have so many, we will pass it, but in this case I will be using these only 2 users. And then the next thing, let's go back to the security config and remove the comment. This will return in-memory user details that we create. Let me have new in-memory user detail service. So, and here we will pass a list of users, and we have this class. Let me have at authority here, and then call this class user memory service. So, and then we will pass the user memory service and access the users method. So we are passing the list of users here. So this is all we have to do here. Now, before having our security filter chain, let's go back to the design that we have. So here we have the password encoder already. We also have the user detail services. We also use the list, which we can use to fetch the data. Okay, so what is remaining is the authentication provider and the authentication manager. As I said earlier, the authentication manager uses authentication provider, which implements the authentication logic, and then the authentication provider uses the password encoder and user detail service to validate the user. So now let's go back to the code. So first we need the authentication manager being okay. So you need public authentication manager. Okay, so here we will have our authentication provider, and we will use the class provided by the Spring Security, and we will pass the user detail service and the password encoder. First, let's have the password encoder here as a parameter, and as well as let's drop these. Okay, so password encoder, and then we need the user detail services. Okay, so what is remaining, let me take this off. Now the next thing we will do is to have the use the DAO authentication provider class. DAO authentication provider equal to new DAO authentication provider, and here it is. So let me shorten this by using the var keyword. So, and then what we will do here is that we will use the DAO authentication provider this field to set the password encoder. Set password encoder, then we will pass this password encoder, and as well we need the DAO authentication provider to set the user detail service. Okay, here is the set the user detail service. Okay, when we set this will return there is a class provider manager. So new provider manager, provider manager implement the authentication manager. So we will pass the here DAO authentication provider as the parameter, here DAO authentication provider. So, and we finish with this implementation. First, we set the password encoder and user detail service to our DAO authentication provider. That is, we connected this user detail service password encoder to this authentication provider, and we use the Spring Security provided class, which is the authentication provider for the authentication. And then we also have the authentication manager as a bin. Okay, now let's go next. The next thing we will do is to have the security filter, and then we will test our code. So let's save this, and then the next thing we need a bin of the public security filter chain, http security. So then okay, so first we need to disable the CSRF. I will use the one with the lambda call the disable. Okay, so and then we also need the HTTP security. We need to have the endpoint home so that we can use for the test. Okay, we need the request, authorized HTTP request. Let's pass the lambda here. We need to have the endpoint here called home, the path. So let's use the request and access the okay. So now let's access the request matcher and then pass the home. So later we will create this in the controller, and we will authenticate. This will be authenticated only the user who is authenticated will be able to access this. So, and then the last thing we will do is to call the form login. So, and this will just return the class form login, so that we will have the form login when we are trying to log in the browser. So I will name the variable as form, then we will access the get class. So this is okay, and then this method will throw an exception, but first let us return this build. Okay, so return build, and let add throws declaration here. So you see we have this so far, and the next thing we will do is go to the controller and add this. So in the controller class, new class, let's add this to auth controller. So we added the auth controller, and after adding this, let's add this add controller. So we have this add controller, and what we will do is to add the add get mapping. Okay, so we need this home slash home, and then let's have the method public string, let's name it home, and then this will return a I want this to return just a string home, but this I will add a response body here because I want it to return the home as a string, not a HTML page. I added this at controller, not at risk controller, because there are methods that I will define in this class later, which is the login, which will return a HTML page. That is why I use at controller and added the at response body on this. So now let's test this implementation and see. First we will try to access the home, and it will take us to the login page. So you see it take us to the login page, and we have this. Don't forget that we define here in the user memory service, we define these users. We have Yasir and Ali. Okay, now let's try to, so not here, let's try to access Aliyu, and we have the password at 1234. So you see this works perfectly fine. Okay, so let me call the logout and try the other name, logout. So let me try the Yasir on 1234. So access the night. So let's check out what is happening here. We have the Yasir as 1234, and let's go back to this and try to access the home. That is because we did not try to access home, we just try to access a path like this, an empty path with just a slash, and authenticated, we doesn't have this endpoint. And let's try the home now. So you see we access this home, but for confirmation let us log out again, try Yasir, and then first let's attempt to go to home, and it will take us here. Then we try Yasir, and then followed by 1 2 1 2 3 4. So it takes us from that, means all our implementation so far it is working. Okay, now the next thing we will do is to have our own login form. So we will ignore this login form, we will provide our own. So let's do this next. Okay, now let's go to the controller and have a post mapping and get mapping, a method that will handle the login page. So now let's have a get mapping, and I will just name this a login page. That is the part to this. So, and then we will have a method public string login. Let me have get login to have the difference between the post and the okay. So get login, and then this will return the HTML page that we will create login, something like this. Okay, so and we will also need the add post mapping, and then of this same thing here, followed by the method public string, and this will be the post login. Okay, so and we will have something like this, and this will also return the login page which we will create. Okay, so this is what we have so far, and what we will do next is to have add model attribute here, and we will use this to receive the user details and pass it to the username and password authentication class. So this will be of type user. So here is a user, our user class. Okay, so what we will do next is to have the authentication manager face at authorize private authentication manager. So, and we will use this here, but first let us have the username password authentication token, and let us have the variable username password authentication token. Let me shorten this. Okay, equal to, and we will call this authentication manager. So authentication manager dot authenticate. So let me drop this down. Here we will pass the username password authentication token, but we will have new username password authentication token. Here we have the one with the 3 parameter, and we also have the one with the 2 parameter. Okay, the one with the 3 parameter, that is shows that it is authenticated if the user is finally authenticated, and if we pass this detail, the user will be authenticated directly, and if we use this, the user is not yet authenticated. and the username password authentication class is the implementation of the authentication object. So here we will pass the username first, user.get username, and then user.get password. So okay, this is what we have so far, and then let's close this. So and this will throw an exception. The exception will be the bad credential. So if you have passed some bad credential, it will throw an exception. So let me copy this and put it into the try catch. Okay, and then here we will pass throw new bad credential exception. Okay, and the message will be bad credential. Okay, so and then we will have authentication error. So whatever you write here between the bad credential and authentication error. So we will also need the model. Let's pass the model here, which we will use to render error in the page. Okay, so let us define the message that we will pass here. String message equal to this. We will write the error message, and the message will be invalid credential. Okay, so and we will pass this message to our model, and we will have the model here, model dot add attribute. Okay, we will be using this. Okay, so let's name this a message. So and we will pass our message here. Okay, so if you have invalid credential, we will have this unreachable code. So let me have this here. Okay, so the next thing we will do, we will go to the resource and create the login and test this. So to have this, I will just use the JWT to create the HTML, to generate the HTML page. I already have the question asked, so let's check out here. Okay, here it is, and let's go to the top. I will provide this in the repository. So you see we have generate me HTML CSS login form with this color, and here is the color I give. And so this is the HTML and the CSS. So let's copy this, go back to the, here we have in the resources, let's go to the template and create the new. So HTML file, click next. Okay, so the name of this will be login. Okay, so we click finish. and then here is the login, and we will replace it with this code. So we will just do a little modification here, but before then, let's first go to the CSS and create new folder CSS, where we will copy all the CSS code and have it inside this, and we will create the CSS file. So and let's name this style. Okay, so here is our style, and let's go back to the login and copy all the CSS codes here. So we will have the CSS code here. Okay, and then the next thing we will do is to permit this path. Okay, let's go to the security config, and we will permit the path to the CSS. If not, we will not access it. So CSS folder, and followed by the file, we will just add the star to indicate that in case if we have another path, it will permit this. So let's save this and go back to our template login. So let's delete this, and what we will do here is we will link our CSS to this HTML page. Link. Okay, so inside this we will have our style. First we need the rel to style sheet. Okay, so we also need the href, and we will have the path to the CSS, and then we will access the style.css, and this will be add inside this attribute. Let me copy. So okay, here is what we have so far, and we want to render this to see in the browser what we have. But before then, let's check out. We will permit the path login page. So let's go to the controller, and then we copy this login page, go to the security config. So we will pass it here. So now let's try to access this. First we have this authenticated, because lastly we are trying to have check our implementation. So but for now I will set this part to permit all, and then after this part, any request follow, we will call this method any request authenticated. So we will it will permit these three parts so far. Okay, so let's go to the browser and try to access the login page to see what we have. Login page. So you see we have our login page, but we have to add some code in the HTML. So let's go back to the login, and first we will add the th action. Okay, let me drop down these. So first here, let's have, we will link it to the link that we have in the controller to the path. So I copy this. So we have the login page, the method is post here, this one is okay, and we need the th object. So th object equal to user, the one we set when we are working with the add model attribute, and this will be inside this attribute. Okay, so okay, this is what we have so far, and then let's go to the th field as well. Th, here we will have field, and then we will map this to the username. So, and the attribute we will use here is star followed by the username, like this, and then so we will copy this, the same thing to the password. Okay, so let's change this to password. Okay, what we have so far is good, but there is something we will add in the controller class. So first, in the controller class, we will add this model attribute to our get mapping, otherwise we will not access. And then to confirm that this is working, let's use a logger equal to logger dot get logger. Okay, so not with this parameter dot get logger. First we will pass the auth controller dot class dot get name. So we will use this to log what is, when we call this endpoint, we will know what is going on. So I want to use the logger to logger dot info. So username. So I want to check if this solution work get username. Okay, so let's save the changes and then go back to our login page. So now let's try to add the name Aliyu and then 1 2 3 4. So let's check here. So we are having the username as Aliyu, so that shows that it is working fine. And we need to check, the next thing we need to check is that if this model attribute that we set this message works. So how we will do this? So let's go to the login again, and then what we will do here is that here we will have our message. So let me define a div and give it the class name called message. So we will also have th attribute to see if the message is not equal to null. So that is the message we pass in the controller. th then followed by if. So we'll pass if message is not equal to null, then we will display it here. Okay, we will display this here. And how we will display it, we will use this attribute, okay, followed by the message. Okay, so and we need to use this class name that we define in the CSS file to give it some style. So let's go to the CSS file, and then so let's have this. And what we will do is here we need a background color of this, and the color is white, the same thing as what we have here. So let's paste this and let's check this if it works. So to check this, we will pass the note here. So to check this, we will pass the wrong detail. Let me reduce this name and have, okay, so it takes us to the login page. So let's go to the auth controller phase, and let's go to the auth controller phase security config, and then remove this login page. So save the changes, go to the, and this works perfectly fine. So let's try it again. To the login page, there is something we forgot, that is why it's returning. When we have this error, we need to return the login page. So let me return the login page here, return the login page. So let me remove this now and save this. So it will just return this login page. Now let's go to the login page. If you access the login page, try this allow, and then we have 1 2, let's pass the wrong details. You see we have invalid credential. Okay, so we are not setting this to center now. We already have a tutorial user registration where we use this lot of this. So just our aims now, we just need to have the JWT util and the filter, and we will pass the credential from here. Okay, so our implementation works. The next thing we will do is we will have the JWT filter. As in this picture, we have all these: the data source, the user detail service, the password encoder, authentication manager, and the authentication provider. So now we need to add the custom filter, but before then, let's define the class JWT. Okay, now we will create a class for the JWT here in the JWT util package, new class, and we will call this class JWT util as well. Okay, finish. In the part 1 of this series, we have covered a lot on the JWT from the beginning, JWT for Java. So you will check this tutorial. I highly encourage you to watch So now let's annotate this with add component face, and then let's have the face. We will have the secret key and private secret key. So let's call it key. The key we will use for signing and verifying. So let's call it key. We will use the JWTs dot. We have this method sharing, and then we will use HS256 followed by key method dot build. So by adding this, we have built this key of HS256, which we will use for signing and verifying our JWT. And the next thing we will do is what? Okay, so the next thing we will do, we will have a create token method. So let's do this public string create token. So on this, we will pass this, we will create the token with the username of the principal, which is the user. So and for now, let us return just a string to avoid this error, and later we will return our JWT token. So let's start this by having JWT class.builder, and then first we need a header. We have said earlier the header is what describes the metadata about the payload. So let's add the header. So to add the header, we access this method, and then we use the method add. Here we have string and the value. So string value and the string key. Okay, key and value. So here we will have the, let's add just the algorithm and have it just like this, HS256. that is, we are describing the payload here, and then the type. So the type to JWT, and then so we will use the sign-in key it. So we pass this key to the sign with. Okay, so and then the next thing we will do is to add issuer. So that is the one who issue the issuer. Let me write the name of the channel, coding techniques, and then followed by the issue at. Okay, that is the time when it issues, issue at. So we will pass the date. So here I will use the time now, so which is the time that the token created. And to do this, let me add the current time millis private long. So let's name this current time millis equal to system dot current time millis, and we will pass this to the parameter of the date class, new date. So let's call the date class again new date. Here we will pass it, it will return a long. So we pass the current time millis, that is now in millis. Okay, now the next thing we will add is we also have expiration. So to add the expiration, we need to have the time which will expire. So we don't want it to pass 30 minutes. So how we will do this, we have the private long again, so and we will pass this to token validity equal to, here we will use the time unit. So we will time the time unit and accesses the minute. Okay, so and this minute have 2 millis, that is 2 millis. So we will pass 30 here. Okay, it will convert this to millis, minute to millis, and then so let's have the new date long face. We will pass the current time millis, which is noun, plus the token validity. So that is all. And so we will pass the claim as well. So the claim is the username, and the key which we will find the username, let's just name it as well as username. So and call the compact. Okay, so here we will remove this return type to the top. It will return this. Okay, so this is what we have so far, create token. And the next thing we will do is to have a method which we will use to verify. Okay, let's do this again. Public, and we will name this method, it's of type claim. So I will name this verify JWTs. So and here we will pass the string token which will be verified. So to verify this, first we will need to check if it is not null, and then so if token is not equal to, we will check the token if is not equal to null, and then if it's not equal to null, we will return the JWTs dot parser. Here we will call parser, and we will verify with secret key, that is our key, and let accesses the build method, and then we will pass the signed claims. The signed claim is the token that we have. So on the get payload, so we need to return the get payload. So and otherwise, if it is null, we just want to return null. This is all. Oh, that is all. So this is, we have verify JWTs, create token, and we have the method to verify it. The last thing we will have here is the to check the validity, the method that will check the validity We all talk about these classes a lot in details on how to create the token in the part 1 of this. So let's do this. I highly encourage you to watch. So this will be boolean. Let's name it check validity. So and here we will pass the token as a parameter. So and this will throw authentication exception, throw authentication exception. So throws will have throws authentication exception, and let's have the try catch. So what we will return here is that we will return the verify JWS method phase. Verify JWS, we will call this method and pass the token, then get expiration. Here is the method get expiration to check if it is after now, which is the time of time of checking the validity. So new date, and we will pass the current time millis. So this will throw, let's just set throw E, so to have this exception clear. So this is all we want in this class. We finish with the creation of this class. So now the next thing we will do is to have the filter. Okay, now let's create a JWT authentication filter. New class, JWT authentication filter. So JWT authentication filter. So here this class will extend the once per request filter. So and we will have this add on implemented method do filter. So once we finish the implementation of this method, we will add this method in our security config, and we have filter. We also have once per request filter, and this filter applies once on a request. So as it describes filter based class that aims to guarantee a single execution per request. Okay, so now let's start the implementation of this method. First we need to get the token phase, the generated token. So we will create the token in the controller, and we will get the token here when the user comes up with the request. Let's set string token, and where we will get this is in the request header, request.get header, and here we will want the authorization. We want to get the authorization header. So and also we will need a claim. So a claim equal to, we will call our method, so the method which it will verify. So now let's have the private JWT Util. So we also need another field here, which is authentication manager. So let's create a constructor with these fields. In the sources, generate not getter and setter, generate constructor using field. So we have this constructor. So now let's use the JWT util to access the verify JWTs and pass this token to the verify JWT. So, and if it return null, if claim, first let's check if it's not equal to null. So, and we will have some implementation here, and if it is null, then let's have the filter chain to do filter request and response. So if it is not equal to null, first we will check the validity of the token. So let's have string of username. So first we will get the username from the claim dot get. We will pass the key that we use in the class. First we will check the username and we will store this in the string, and we need to use the string dot value of to convert this to string. So let's copy this without this. Okay, so and we will add it here. So and we will store this as username here, and then equal to like this. Okay, so and the next thing, we also need the user detail service, because we will check if the username is equal to the username when the username that we will load in the data source. So here we will need a private again. So user details service, user details service. So in this case, let me create this constructor, and I will delete this. We will not be using the authentication manager. We will just use the web authentication detail source class. So and then let me generate the constructor again. Sources, generate constructor using field. So it is generating. So let's delete this. Okay, now let's go to this. If we have claim is not equal to null, here we have string username. We get the value of the username, and how we will check. So we need a user details, and then name this user equal to user details service dot load the username. So here we have this username, we pass it to this parameter, and it will check. So it will load the user, and if the user exists, here we will pass another if the user exists. First we will check the validity of the token. JWT check validity, we will pass the token, and as well as we will check if the username here is, or we will use the method equals to user dot get username. Okay, so now if we have this step all cleared, the next thing we will do is to have the user authenticated. So we will surround this with try catch. So I don't want to surround this with try catch, the code will be ugly. Let me go back to the JWT and check on the check validity. So let me remove this. Okay, so I don't want to throw it on, since that we have the method, we have some validation here, so I don't want to throw this here. So the next thing we will do is to have the username password authentication. So that is to authenticate the user. Authentication equal to new username password. Here we will use the one with the 3 parameters, since that we, in this case, the user will be authenticated. Okay, so let's access user.get username, user.get password, and as well as the role, user.get authority. So, and then let's close this. So the next thing we will do is to authenticate the user, and we will use the class web authentication sources. On first we need to access the authentication dot. Okay, we will have the method set details, and here we will pass the new web authentication details source. Here is the class. So let me remove this new web authentication detail source, and we have a method build details, and it will build the details from the request. So here we will pass the request. So let's store this in the security context holder. So as in the image, we will store this in the security context. Okay, we will call the security context holder dot get context dot set authentication, and here we will pass the authentication. Okay, the detail of the authenticated user. So this is all we need here. The next thing we will do is we will add this to the chain in the security config class. So let's do this. Okay, now let's go and add our filter. So let's go to the security config and then http security.add filter. Before we need this before username password authentication filter, and let's pass our filter here. So our filter is JWT, new JWT authentication filter. Here we have parameter of first JWT and then followed by user detail service. Let me check on, you see we have JWT and user detail service. So security config will pass the JWT Util and then user detail service. So let's pass this to this first, the JWT and then user detail service. So and this will be username password authentication. Okay, username password authentication filter dot class. So we are adding this filter before the username password authentication, and we also need http security dot session management, and here we are setting the session management to stateless, which means it will not store cookies, it will not use cookies, and it will not create an HTTP session. Okay, so let's have session as the lambda. Okay, this session okay, manage session dot session creation policy, session creation policy, and we will add this stateless session creation policy dot stateless. Okay, so we finished with this, and the next thing we will do is to go to the controller, and in this controller we will call the method create token and pass username at autowired private JWT Util JWT. So and we will create the token here, JWT Util dot create token. So with the user dot get username. So let's store this on a string token. So let's save this. We are getting the JWT token here, and we need the HTTP servlet response in the parameter where we will set the response so that we will use the token. HTTP, here we have servlet response, and we will use it here, and response dot set header, and what will be the header here is the authorization. Okay, so we are setting this to the response header. When we met a first request login, then the response, in the response of the request, we will also have this in the header so that we will use the token. And I need to create another HTML page here, new HTML file. So we will have this as success, and here we will have h1. Let me also write something here. So any request required, JWT token in the header. When we log in, it will take us to this page. So let's go back to the auth controller, and it will return this success. Okay, I think we have this, we write it as this. So in the security config, let's remove this home. We will not permit this home. Only the user who is authenticated will be able to access this. So now for the first time, let's check their implementation to see if it is working as expected. First, let's go to the login page. So here is our login page. Let me enter the right username. So it takes us to the any request requires JWT token in the header. So we need to access the home, and you see that if we try to access the home here, it is forbidden. Let's check what it returned here in the, go to the network tab, and then so you see we have the get method to login. Here is success, and we have the home, which is return 403. Okay, that is because this part only the user who is authenticated will get access. So how we will do now, so let's check our response. Let's first make a login request and check the response login page. So 1 2 3 4 login. So here is the one that we just log in. So you see in the response we have our JWT token created. So let's see if we will be able to access the path. So let me copy the value. I will just use this as to copy the value and go to this home. So let's try to access the home part now. So now we added the home, and let's add the header authorization. This is parameter. Here we have authorization, and let's replace this with our new JWT. So you see what we have. Let me open this so that we will see clear, and we have authorization. Now let me send the request. So you see our request is now 200, which is a success. It accesses and the user is authenticated. And if we change a little thing in the token now, if we try to access, you will see we have 403. So this is the end of this tutorial, and this is what we have been able to build, and I hope you will subscribe this channel for more videos. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share.